have an interesting question for you today.
Oh, here we go. I haven't seen these ahead of time.
No,
so
I have
no idea
not.
what's
Let
coming.
them know. So you write epic fantasy, but then you decide to write sword and sorcery, and then you decide to write military fantasy.
Yes.
Will you ever write any other genres? I happen to know the answer to this one.
Yeah, okay. So eventually I will probably... I have more fantasy stories to tell, first of all.
Yeah.
But I also would like to get into some science fiction, where I've had some
Yeah.
ideas for a science fiction trilogy for quite some time.
So it's not just an idea. What a lot of people don't know about Paul is he's always wanted to be an author. When I first married him, he always wanted to write a book. He's tried writing a book before the ones he's writing now. Probably, I'm going to say 6 to 10 times. And when I say tried, he wrote chapter upon chapter upon chapter. I think the longest one was 10 or 11 chapters. So they were
close to that, yeah.
fantasy. But then he wrote one, and it was actually my favorite, Drake's Forge.
Yeah. Although I can't use that name now because someone else has a series called Drake something or other.
Okay.
So I'll probably change the name.
But what did you like about writing that one?
I think it set a first of all, let me start by saying I never finished it because I never plotted it out.
I'm so disappointed.
Right? I'll revisit it and plot it out at some point. But what I liked about writing it was I got to me, the hardest part was always doing dialogue, which is funny because now I don't find dialogue hard
your dialogue's amazing.
But what writing that book or part of a book did for me was it allowed me to develop two characters. I had the scientist and then the pilot.
Yeah.
And their banter worked, I think. And I mean, part of that was based on our relationship.
Yeah.
So it's got some playful, fun remarks and comedy in it. Like realistic comedy, not like slapstick or anything. But life sometimes does. Yeah. Life sometimes is funny.
Yeah.
So, and I think that really came about really well. So we have there was a tender moment between the two of them, but they were in a 4-plane, or like the equivalent of a 4-person plane. Yeah. There's two people in the back seat making comments as they're trying to do stuff. So that was kind of fun.
Yeah, I remember that one. And then you had one with dwarves going over a mountain pass.
Yes, actually. That was another story that I enjoyed. The scene is what really got me into that. Yeah. It was this basically a small... It's based on like a D&D kind of thing. A small party, one of which is a dwarf, and he's the one that's point of view is told. Yeah. And they get attacked by something in a snowstorm.
Yeah, I think that was like 30 years ago. Was it 25?
That was a very long time ago.
I
still have it somewhere in the back of one of those black binders.
I know. I couldn't find it. I was looking for it.
Yeah, it's around somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
So any other genres? So we've talked about you do the 3 fantasy and science fiction, and it's not more science fiction fantasy, would you say? Or would you say it's hard?
It's more...
how do you determine whether it's science fiction fantasy or hard science fiction? I don't know.
It's not hard science fiction because it's in a future that's far removed. So the concepts, I don't want to give away the concepts because I will use them. It's the equivalent of a jump drive, warp drive, whatever you want to call it. So there's interstellar travel. Yeah. But I thought that the plot I had was a clever. I don't want to say too much about it because
I know
I'll
the
be
plot,
using it. But I thought it was kind of a unique situation to put things into. So that's why.
Any other genre? Did you ever write historical fiction? Because that's your absolute favorite thing to read, other than nonfiction, which, trust me, that's not me.
My problem with historical fiction, writing it, is...
You like reading it a lot.
I do like reading it a lot, but I feel like it would take far too much research time.
It does.
To do it. I mean, I do a lot of research for the fantasy stuff, but I'm the type of person that if I'm writing a tale that takes place in the Napoleonic Wars or... ancient Britain or whatever, I'd have to make sure every single thing is
and I think
so. And the problem is, if I do historical fiction based anywhere other than where I live, that's very difficult to do. Now, having said that, I could potentially write a story that takes place during the War of 1812, and we've got all kinds of resources at hand.
We have lots of resources.
Well, I mean, you could go visit places too.
True,
right?
true. But you also have lots and lots and lots of books about that.
Yeah.
There's bookshelves of historical fiction.
As far as historical fiction, I don't think that's in my future. I think I would do sci-fi first, but I think I still have a lot more fantasy tales.
Someone wanted to know, would you ever write a children's book?
Would I write a children's book? Possibly. I think years ago, when before the new Star Wars movies came out, there was this thing called the Star Wars Expanded Universe.
Okay.
So there are all these novels that took place following Episode 6. Some of them were really, really good, and they've recycled some of them. They're no longer canon in terms they never existed in the Star Wars universe. Okay. They now call them Star Wars Legends or something.
Okay.
But they did something. They did the Young Jedi Academy series, which Amanda
one of our daughters read that.
And so I could see doing something like that. You know, taking, I could theoretically take Agar and Oswin, make them a little bit older, and have their stories being
middle grade
stories.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if I would do that or not, because in a sense, my market right now is an adult market. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if
writing a story middle grade, the adults might not read it, and then it's tough because
you've got to break in a whole new audience.
It's also part of the universe, yet not part of the universe.
Right. So at some point in time down the road, might I do that? Maybe. We'll see. Anything's possible.